Namaste. My name is Kirti, and on behalf of Himalayan Yoga Association, I welcome you all to this online teacher training course. I am a teacher here at Himalayan Yoga Association, and I will be taking you through the concepts and details of the human body and yoga altogether. Let's hope you enjoy this course. Let's start.
Namaste and welcome back to the online yoga teacher training course. In today's session, we are going to understand the 8 limbs of yoga as per Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. But before we go ahead and do that, like how we always do, we're going to chant the Gayatri Mantra together to gather our awareness and positivity in ourselves and our surroundings. Simply sit straight with your spine completely erect. Activate any mudra of your choice and rest your hands on your knees, irrespective of whether you're sitting on the floor in cross-legged positions or you're sitting on a chair. Close your eyes, roll your shoulders to the back, and while you're sitting like this, I request you to inquire within yourself, question your posture. If you're sitting straight, if your head is in line with your spine, are your shoulders aligned with each other? Are you comfortable, steady, and are you breathing optimally, completely using your lungs? Just observe your breath and allow it to work its magic on your mind and your body. Only after you close your eyes can you start looking inwards. By using your breath as an instrument, try to recognize the pattern your breath has created as it enters and leaves your body. Slow down your breath, spend more time on every breath, and it will leave a lasting effect on your mind. Now slowly bring your hands in front of your chest. Namaskara Sthiti. Touch the heart center with the back of your thumbs. We're going to chant the mantra now. If you know the mantra, you can chant it with me. Otherwise, you can always repeat it afterwards. Slowly breathe in once. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Having absorbed the vibration and effect of the mantra, let's generate some energy between our hands by rubbing our palms against each other. After you feel this generation of energy, you should transfer this energy to your eyes first, absorb it through your eyes, then massage your face, the back of your neck, and anywhere else you wish to transfer this energy to. Before you expose your eyes to direct light, once again, fold your palms, bow down to the universal truth. With a few blinks, open your eyes. Welcome back. So, the 8 limbs of yoga, I'm sure you must have heard of the 8 limbs of yoga in very philosophical lectures, in random articles about yoga. The 8 limbs of yoga are the building blocks of a yogi. If you translate the 8 limbs of yoga in Sanskrit, then it becomes Ashtanga Yoga. Now, Ashtanga Yoga is, don't get confused by the Ashtanga classes that you get in studios and in this course as well. The Ashtanga Yoga is basically Asht means 8 and Anga means limbs. So, the 8 limbs translate to Ashtanga in Sanskrit and yoga remains the same as it is. Now, if I have to go ahead and tell you how do you reach enlightenment entirely, then I will point you towards this entire chart that you see right here. This entire chart has been compiled by Patanjali in the classical phase around 500 years before the birth of Christ. when he compiled the entire information of yoga and that was scattered around before that time. He went through the entire information, whatever teachings, lessons, techniques that he collected, and because of his intellect, he was able to sort out the entire sequence of the 8 limbs or enlightenment in this form. Now, these 8 steps are the main steps of the 8 limbs of yoga. At the same time, you need to realize that this is like a ladder that a yogi needs to climb. You cannot overlap a step in this case. Just in case if you think that you can straight away start from asanas or just straight away start from pranayam or pratyahar or any random step in between in order to reach enlightenment, it will not work, because like I said, yoga is a complete activity which not just controls and helps you take control of your physical body, your physical breath, but also the mind and the environment that you live in. The change needs to come from within, and that is what we are going to understand, how these 8 limbs of yoga help you reach enlightenment, what you need to do in order to become enlightened, in order to take control of your true self rather than giving control to your outer self. The first step here is yamas. Yamas, if you translate it to English, becomes social ethics. These are also the things that you should not be doing. In other words, we can also say that these are the things that you should adhere from. You should not participate in. Yamas are the social ethics of how you should behave with the outside world socially, how you should behave with the outside world externally whenever you're out around people, and between these interactions, how you should be reacting and responding to situations. Keep in mind that the dual sense of consciousness is something that is the goal of yoga, that is something that needs to be removed from the conscious mind itself. The concept of thinking something, saying something, hearing something, expressing something, and doing something. In severe cases, all of these 5 aspects of interactions can be completely different, which creates a conflict in the mind itself. So, yoga as an activity, yoga as a way of life, works towards merging down all of those 5 different aspects of thinking and bringing it in one single consciousness. That means you're able to think and express the same thing on a subconscious level without you even trying to do that. When the mind will be eased with the burden of one single conscious, that means you're not carrying any conflict in your mind, even though you may be doing something completely different. The mind will be able to focus on itself, and it will be able to regenerate positive thoughts from within. Let's go ahead and discuss the yamas. There are 5 yamas that you need to, or we can say 5 social ethics that you need to practice in order for your own personal growth. If you'll observe these 8 steps, yamas, niyamas, asana, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, then you'll see that the first 4 steps of the 8 limbs of yoga are very physical in nature. Or we can also say that they require a lot of movement, they require a lot of self-interaction. They do not really promote stillness in any way, but at the same time, these are things that you need to do when you are mobile. Eventually, from step 5 until step 8, after pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, you reach on to a stage where you're required to stay still. And it's not really a requirement. Eventually, by the time you reach these stages, you will enjoy stillness, you will enjoy silence, you will enjoy not moving at all. And that is exactly what we do. Fluctuations in the physical body will result in fluctuations in the mind. Fluctuations in the mind will result in physical bodies. For instance, in severe mental illness cases, people, they start shaking their arms and legs just because they're so anxious of the thoughts that are conveyed. The breath remains the instrument for every thought that is created inside the body, because the breath carries the prana, and when this prana moves in and out of the body, It creates thoughts because that is the function of the brain, to create thoughts. And with the help of yoga, you can change or tamper the function of the brain and control it as per your wish. This is the whole goal, and this is in fact that also happens in case of samadhi once you reach that stage. So without further ado, let's discuss the first 5 social ethics that you should do, or in other words, you should not do when you're out in social interactions. Ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence. Non-violence in what form? Non-violence in a physical sense, non-violence in a mental sense as well. Remember, the dual conscious needs to go away and needs to be replaced with one single conscious that is completely non-violent. You need to bring about this change from the conscience itself. Even your subconscious mind should think in a non-violent manner. Only then will you be able to express pure and true non-violence outside when you're interacting with others. If at all you have non-violence in your thoughts, then it will somehow creep out in your interactions as well. And that cannot be true yoga, because even though you may create a false image of yourself in front of the naked eye of others, but deep within you will still be fighting the conflict in your mind itself. And it is always advised to never lie to yourself, because that is the most damaging thing you can do. Satya. Satya is another social ethic that we need to follow, one of the yamas, which means non-lying or pure truthfulness. We should always be truthful. That is not really a yogi concept, that is a humane concept in itself. One lie is going to create more lies. In order to support one lie, there needs to be a chain of more lies to be followed. Why do you need to go ahead and create more thoughts in your head while you're already trying to remove the random thoughts in your mind? Stick to the truth. Stick to what you've seen, what you know, what you feel, and express it truthfully. If you're able to express truth every day, every time, in every interaction, then naturally that will become a habit. The whole concept of truthfulness will bring about a mental change in you, and it will also bring about positivity in your head. It will take out fearlessness out of your mind. Usually people lie because they fear a consequence. Facing a consequence is another yogi aspect. Remember, self-trust is a yogi quality. So being truthful all the time, no matter what the consequence, is one of the major things that needs to change inside you. And if you are not doing it, then you should do it, not for anybody else's good, but for your own personal development. The third social ethic that we have is asteya, or non-stealing. Non-stealing or asteya is basically a craving for all the things that we do not have, or we do not own, or may even belong to someone else. While possessiveness is trying to achieve something which need not be stealing itself, while possessiveness may be trying to achieve something materialistic or staying attached to something, non-stealing is associated with jealousy. Non-stealing is associated with hatred. Non-stealing is also associated somewhere with possessiveness. You should not think about what others have, you should think about what you have. At the same time, moving on, non-stealing is obviously a quality that you should not do. Brahmacharya is another social ethic, one of the yamas. Now, a lot of times people get confused with brahmacharya as celibacy, which it actually means in its own self as well. The principle of celibacy is not to have any sexual interactions as such. Why is sexual interaction such a big thing, especially in case of yoga? Why can you not be very sexual at the same time, but also at the same time remain a yogi itself? Brahmacharya is a quality which controls the mind. Remember, these are social ethics, things that change, that needs to come from the mind itself. So brahmacharya, even though it is about celibacy, but it is, you need to think about the mental aspect of it. If a person is having lustful thoughts throughout their lives, if they are always thinking about sexual favors, sexual interactions, then when will they be able to sit inwards and focus on their own self? If they are getting distracted by thoughts of sexuality wherever they go, whatever they do, if this is a hurdle that they need to cross in order to progress in their journey, then this hurdle will come again and again and again in their lives. Sexuality is a never ending thing. At the same time, it is one of the truths of this universe. And that is one of the reasons why, as a yogi, only you can control these thoughts. Try to keep away from thoughts of lust, from thoughts of sexual interactions with others. Thinking about having multiple partners, thinking about creating sexual favors with people you come across is just going to create more stories in your head, is just going to create more mental problems, more mental conflicts. All the progress that you may have made over your mind will be completely eradicated and you will come back to square one. Granted, you do not have control over your sexual thoughts. The last social ethic that we have to follow here is aparigraha. Now, aparigraha is another one of the social ethics that you need to follow. Aparigraha basically means possessing things that are a result of your lust, of your fear, of your anxiety, and these are basically objects that you can and may have been already been attached to. Remember, detachment is one of the goals of a yogi. No matter what you have, you're not going to take it with you. So, owning something, being attached to something, or possessing something which creates these emotions in your mind is something that can also create more thoughts, more problems, more conflicts in your mind. And that is why we should restrain ourselves from possessing things which are coming from our own fears, which we are attached to, which we have lusted towards, just so we can not really create any conflicts in our mind. Moving on from yamas, we have the niyamas. The niyamas are the self-discipline of a yogi. If the yamas are the things that you should not do, then we can also say that the niyamas are the things that you should be doing. In other words, these are the 5 observances. There are 5 of these observances, and these are the 5 observances of self-discipline that need to take place on an everyday basis, just like the yamas or any of the rest of the 8 limbs of yoga. The first one of the niyamas is Soch, or cleanliness. Cleanliness of what? Cleanliness of the physical body. Cleanliness, is it enough that in the name of cleanliness you just go ahead and take a shower every morning? Will that be enough? No. That's because cleanliness is not just about the physical body, it is about your surroundings as well. Remember, you are a part of this surroundings that you are in. As long as you are able to keep the surroundings clean, your mind will stay clean as well. But if the body is clean and the outer world that you're surrounded with is not clean, then it has the power to change the thoughts in your mind. Your interaction, your response will be different. And that is just going to make it difficult for you to progress in your journey. So it is much, much easier to not just clean your own physical self, but also clean the places where you usually are, where you practice yoga, your living space, your clothes, wear clean clothes, keep clean plates to eat in. All of these basic principles, basic things which we generally practice every day are one of the basic needs of your own personal yogic journey. The second self-observance of discipline is santosha. Santosha also means contentment. Remember the difference between the 3 trigunas, tamas, rajas and sattva. If you are content with yourself, if you're content with the things that you have, and only then will you be able to see anything as a gift. If you are someone who's very possessive of things, if you're very overambitious like how a Rajasic person is, then naturally your thirst for owning things will never come to an end. Santosha or contentment is a state of mind. And remember, only you can be satisfied with what you have. Everything else, there will always be an upgrade to everything. There will always be a newer version available of everything in this world. That is how technology works. That is how things work in this world that we have created as human beings. Only contentment is the key to everlasting peace in the environment. If human was content with what he had, then everything will remain and everything will be sufficient. For instance, Mother Nature, it has enough for everyone, everyone's needs, but it does not have enough for everyone's greed. The same thing is applicable in case of Santosha, contentment. Just be happy with what you have, and only when you're content and satisfied with the things that you have, only when you have made peace with whatever you have, keeping in mind that even though whatever you have is not yours, it has to go away one way or the other in the end, will you see any new thing as a gift in itself. Only then will you be able to respect the new things that come to your life without you having to wish for them in the first place. The third niyama here is tapas or austerity. Now, tapas is the path of a yogi. We can also say that tapas is basically the strongest self-discipline to follow, because it is discipline in itself. Tapas is basically the stage or the path, walking on the path of yoga. You should always pursue the path of yoga, no matter how hard, no matter how difficult, how long, or no matter how fruitful it may be. Always remember, if you're pursuing yoga with an ulterior motive in your mind, or if you're pursuing any activity with an ulterior motive in your mind, then you will create expectations. These expectations will automatically give rise to negative thoughts or sakama karma. If you remember sakama karma, which was possessing things or doing any action with the intention of owning it, thinking of it as mine or yours and I should get it. Tapas is basically walking down this path without being disturbed. If you follow the path of yoga for 6 days non-stop, and on 7th day you realize that no, it's not happening to me, then your tapas ended on the 6 days itself. So tapas is a never-ending journey. Tapas is what you are going to go through throughout your yogic life. Your tapas started from the day you started doing yoga, and it will only end when you are liberated. It will only, or at the time of your death. Throughout your life, no matter how difficult it is, as long as you stay on the path of yoga, as long as you stay and continue your journey, you will always remain in austerity. Now, austerity at the same time does not mean that you can walk on the path of yoga while still continuing your everyday life. If that was the case, then austerity would not have any meaning at all. Austerity is about detachment and following these 8 limbs of yoga altogether and walking down this path without creating any dual conscience. Another one of the self-disciplines that we have to follow is self-study or swadhyaya. Now, swadhyaya is a very important aspect of your own self. Only by inquiring within yourself will you be able to make progress and get better at what you're doing. If you do not inquire yourself, you would never be able to understand your weaknesses and your mistakes. And always remember that your weaknesses or knowing your weaknesses will help you overcome your weaknesses, and knowing your mistakes will help you avoid making those mistakes in the future. So, swadhyaya is a constant practice in itself. You should always keep on self-studying. You should always keep on self-analyzing yourself. just in order to become this perfect human being. That is the ultimate goal of yoga, one way or the other. And the last one of the niyamas that you need to follow is Ishwar Pranidhan, or surrender to God. Always remember that the Creator is what gave us life. The Creator is what gave us bread to eat, one way or the Creator is what created the opportunities for us. If you do not acknowledge to God, if you do not surrender to God, how will you ever be able to make progress? And how will you be able to free yourself from this cycle of rebirths in itself? Ishwar Pranidhan is a very important aspect, because only then can you realize, only then can you stay non-attached to the principles of being a human being, which includes an average human being's principles are, possessing things, making progress, getting richer, all of these different aspects. As long as you are still tangled in this web of humanity, how will you ever be able to surrender to God? Surrenderance to God is very vital for your own personal journey, because once you are able to focus and realize how peaceful, how loving the Creator is to you, you would be able to give everything that you have just in order to find peace and love with God. And at the same time, once you understand and feel the bliss of the Creator in your everyday life, nothing else will be able to satisfy you. In other words, the Ishwar Pranidhan aspect is mentioned here because it makes your life much easier. It makes the yogic journey much, much easier for you. Now, moving on to the third aspect of the 8 limbs of yoga, what we see here is that the yamas and the niyamas are more mental changes that you need to bring, right? The mental changes in case of the 5 social ethics, the 5 social disciplines that we have to follow. All of these come from the mind. All of these are associated with the mental change that you need to bring about. Eventually, once you have maintained these 2 mental aspects throughout your everyday life, then only are you ready to include your physical body in the yogic journey. The sole purpose of asanas is to create a spine which is strong and straight all the time. Only when you're straight in line, if the spine is completely straight, the head is in line and everything is in place, starting from the tailbone to the top of the head, are the chakras aligned on the spinal vertebrae. When these chakras are aligned, then the energy that you're creating, the prana which is entering the body every now and then, only then will the prana be able to move upwards from the tailbone or the root chakra towards the top of your head, moving on from your third eye. There is so many different chakras in the entire human body, 7 of them majorly in the spine itself, which is a necessary thing in order for you to experience eternal bliss or enlightenment, in other words, samadhi. Patanjali only mentions the sitting poses or the meditating poses in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, but we as human beings, we have created so many other poses. There's the peacock pose, which has its own benefits in case of digestion. There is Ashtavakrasana, which is great for people who have diabetes. Every pose has a unique benefit in itself if practiced, irrespective of whether they are of intermediate level or whether they are of advanced level. No matter what, every pose offers something unique, works on a different part of the body, and it has a different benefit in itself. But ultimately, in the ancient times, when this whole chart was created, when this whole sequence was created, the sole purpose of asanas was so that human beings can create a physical body through which they can support the function of the mind, or they can be strong enough to stay erect at the times of meditation and experiencing further steps of the 8 limbs of yoga. If you have a weak body, if your body is not strong enough, then naturally after a few minutes of sitting with a straight spine will become very stressful for you. These stressful feelings, in the physical ache that you will experience, or the hunch in the back that you will experience immediately after some time, will create thoughts in your mind which will be completely against the principles of meditation. There is a reason why the sequence is following like this, and this is what we are going to understand further. So asanas, just so you can strengthen the body so that it can support you at the time of stillness. Pranayam, now that you've taken control of the physical body, starting from yama, you've taken control of the mind. With the help of asanas, you've taken control of the physical body. Now we come down to taking control of the prana that we breathe in. Pranayam is basically a set of breathing exercises through which you are able to control the breath. Prana, which means life force, and yama means to control. So pranayam means controlling the life force from within. There are different techniques, different breathing techniques that had been created in the ancient times through which you are able to control the effect of prana inside the body. Pranayam, with the help of pranayam, you can control the prana, and how, to what extent is it able to benefit the physical body from within. Remember, with the help of pranayam, you can obviously amplify the effect of the life force inside the body. You can guide the internal body to get better at whatever it does, just if you have proper control of the breathing pattern in itself. At the same time, I want you to go ahead and practice something. For instance, I want you to create a lot of thoughts in your head, non-stop random thoughts in your head for a few moments, for let's say a minute or two, and then all of a sudden bring your attention to your breath and keep on observing your breath. Now, immediately when you're observing your breaths, you'll observe that the thoughts have faded away immediately because you've guided your conscious mind towards your observance of your breath. Afterwards, you'll realize that the thoughts have slowly started creeping inside because you've gotten bored of observing your breath. Now, the next step that I want you to do is, I want you to take a deep inhalation and hold your breath for some time while allowing those thoughts to still come into your mind. After holding your breath, within a few moments, when you start feeling that you're running out of breath, you'll realize that you cannot create any more thoughts in your mind, and all that you can think about is that you need more breath. No matter how hard you try thinking about anything about your past, your present, your future, you will only be thinking about what and how to breathe again. So pranayam, taking control of pranayam, is the step which is very vital in order for you to progress in the yogic journey, because beyond the step of pranayam, the entire 8 limbs, the rest of the 8 limbs, they are more about sitting still, and they do not really involve the physical body as such, except for and more consciously focusing on the mind itself. Pratyahar, which means withdrawal of the senses. We have these different senses through which we interact with the outside world. We have the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, the sense of touch, the sense of hearing. All of these different senses, they help us observe, taste, and experience the world as we see, hear, taste, touch, and feel things. The mind is something which collects data from all of these senses, and only then it processes it and creates an impression inside itself. Pratyahar is the step where you have taken control of the mind and the physical body, and now you have sat down to withdraw from the senses. If you're trying to meditate, but at the same time you're immediately disturbed with an explosive sound nearby, then how will you be able to meditate if your sense of hearing is active at that time? So Pratyahar is creating a physical sense, a force field around you, inside which you cannot hear, you cannot see, you cannot taste, you cannot touch, you cannot feel anything outside, but you can only focus inside. With the help of Pratyahar, the practice of yoga moves inwards instead of focusing outwards, because you're required to close down all of your senses to remain undisturbed in the rest of your yogic practice. Dharana. Now you have withdrawn from your senses, it's time to concentrate on one point. Dharana is the stage before meditation. Dharana is the intention of meditation. You finally sat down to focus on that one single point that you've created. It could be a breath, it could be an illusion. Dharana is, if you have ever experienced Trataka meditation, the easiest example that I can give you is, if you've ever experienced the candlelight meditation, which requires you to focus on this one point for a specific amount of time, on this one burning flame on the candle, you're required to stay focused on that one flame, is the intention of meditation. The meditation itself starts when you close your eyes and focus on the image in your mind, image of the burning flame in your mind. So, dharana is creating an intention to meditate, trying to concentrate on one point before you reach the stage of meditation or thoughtlessness. Next comes dhyana. Now, dhyana is the stage of meditation in itself. In the stage of meditation, the entire effortlessness is very prominent. Another definition of meditation is to focus on one point effortlessly for a limited or a lengthened amount of time. If dharana requires you to focus constantly, if dharana requires efforts for you to focus on one point, then dhyana is the stage where the effortfulness has been gone out of the picture completely and the effortlessness has come in. You do not need to put any efforts to concentrate at that point in the stage of meditation. And that is the beauty of meditation. You're able to go further inside. You're able to create the attachments of thoughts, and you're able to experience truth as it is. Whatever thoughts you have, allowing it to move out of your mind and keeping your head clear is all about the stage of meditation. And you can stay in the stage of meditation in two ways: actively and passively. Actively meditating is a stage where you have to actively seek meditation. Passive stage of meditation is a stage where you have reached levels wherein you do not have to actively seek meditation, but you're in the state of meditation itself. You reach that stage by constantly practicing the 8 limbs of yoga, because the change happens in the mind, the physical body, and eventually in the surroundings as well. Dhyana is very vital because at the end of the day, it is unexplainable, the feeling of being in meditation, the benefits of meditation, and I request all of you to please start meditating so that you can finally feel the effect of meditation itself. The last stage of the 8 limbs of yoga is samadhi itself. We followed all of these 7 limbs just so we could reach the 8th limb, which is the stage of eternal bliss. You remember when I told you about how meditation becomes passive in nature. That means you do not have to sit down and seek meditation. Instead, you can stay in a meditating zone in your everyday interactions throughout your awake time or your asleep times as well. Samadhi is something similar. Herein, you're able to experience joy, eternal bliss, and nothing can disturb you. Samadhi is something which is not affected by the things that happen to you, which is not affected by the things that you're able to see, sense, touch, and feel. Samadhi is a combination of all of these 7 steps all together in a very passive manner. Someone who has experienced samadhi has already changed his aura. He becomes extremely attractive. He becomes very powerful. He becomes like a magnet. People get attracted to him even though he may not be saying anything at all. People who are enlightened are able to bring about a positive change in the society. Positive because they're yogis, and change because they have followed the ethics, followed all of these steps effortlessly, continuously for a long time, at the end of which they have made it a habit in a very passive manner. At the enlightenment, some people say that enlightenment is almost death. For some people, it is also death, but at the same time, enlightenment can be experienced while you're completely alive. When you're enlightened, you're no less than God. You're above an average or a human being in itself. You become a superhuman being in itself. Enlightenment is something that needs to be experienced in order to be expressed. Think about the enlightened beings in the society. There have been so many examples, so many sages alive today as well, who are able to impress us, who are able to charm us with their words itself. Imagine if they sat down to do things. Imagine if they sat down to bring about changes in the society, which they are all obviously working on. Imagine the power that they hold in their arms. But because they're yogis, they will never misuse this power. And that is the beauty of enlightenment. Complete, pure, eternal bliss. Only after you're enlightened can you completely purify your karma, can you purify your mind, can you purify the surroundings you're in, and only then will you be able to free yourself from the cycle of rebirth and move on to the next stage of life, which is godliness. At the end of the day, if you remember 𝐸𝐴𝐴, surrender to God, imagine becoming a God itself. This is everything you need to know about the 8 limbs of yoga. I hope you enjoyed listening about and understanding the 8 limbs of yoga. I hope you found it informative enough. I will see you again next time. Until then, thank you and namaste.